What's going on, everybody? We're back. Episode number 4, Combat and Cocktails. Sorry for the 15-minute delay here. My co-host lost track of the time. So, yeah, we're here, though. We're here to chat. We're going to chat some UFC Vegas 107 a little bit. Not a ton to chat about there, but we'll talk about it. We're going to make some cocktails, and we're going to talk, best bets and answer some questions, shoot the shit a bit on UFC 316 this weekend for the rematch that everybody wanted, Sean. Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, how excited are you for this rematch? To be honest with me.
Being honest, I mean, not really, but
don't be honest with me. Don't be honest with me.
I'm super excited. Very excited. I think things are going to go very differently for this fight. Nothing the same.
First up, though, guys, we got a gimlet. Sean came up with a drink this week because I was fucking busy as shit. Sorry, you're not supposed to curse in the first 5 minutes, and I've already blown the SEO on the episode, unfortunately. But Sean, take it away. I was busy today, couldn't come up with anything. Sean threw gimlet out there. I said, why not? We made gin, a few episodes ago. I still got a big bottle of gin here.
Yeah, I had to buy a new one actually. I still have a little bit of the Kirkland here, but I don't know how this is going to last. There's only a little bit here, but basically the recipe calls for 2 ounces of gin, a half to 3/4 ounce fresh lime juice, which you guys know how I do it. I'm not fresh lime juice. I'm using this little guy. And then we got 3/4 or half ounce simple syrup.
So hear me out. I'm going to go 3/4 on the lime and simple syrup, but I'm going to go 2.5 ounces on the gin.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Going to see what kind of damage we can do here.
Modified gimlet.
Yeah. My wife's going to be home tomorrow morning to help take the kids to the dentist. So, I don't have to be on, full 100% locked in mode. So why not mix it up a bit? Go a little heavier.
You got to take advantage in those situations. Oh, man, here we go. I'm going to do it in the shaker. Are you doing it in your shaker, or are you just
I'm doing it in the shaker, and I'm pouring it straight into the glass. No ice in the glass.
All right. Ice in the shaker, though, or no?
Ice in the shaker. Yeah, obviously ice in the shaker. I'm not a terrorist.
Couldn't be you're off the watch list.
Oh, yeah.
Just so the audience knows, I had no real good excuse for being late, and it's very possible, but by the end of this, John will be seeking a new co-host. So submit your application to Targaryen at MMA Fox.
There will be no new co-host. I wouldn't do it any other way other than sloppy and half-assed,
Speaking of sloppy and half-assed, I have to go grab my simple syrup.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, speaking of sloppy and half-assed, let's talk about Macy Barber. But
that's fair. Did you see the interviews she's been doing, the little interview tour?
I saw that she's been posted on the gram, her hospital bracelet and all that shit and whatnot. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm not saying she's not taking fighting seriously. I feel like that's being a bit on the harsh side, but it does seem like that perhaps she is not destined to be a professional fighter with all the health issues she's having. It's it's a pretty taxing, experience on the body. I have to imagine, and if you can't even get to the arena, then I don't know what else there is to say.
I mean, I will say getting a breast augmentation procedure doesn't really help you with being a professional fighter. So,
no, that is certainly true. Although I have heard some people, Sean, blame the relentless schedule of the UFC in 2025 for what happened to Macy Barber.
Wait, what was that? What'd you say?
Did you not catch this? I'm not gonna say the name directly on here and throw someone under the bus. Someone got into it with me and said that I had to stick up my ass because they blamed the relentless UFC 2025 schedule, and I said I'm pretty sure that's not why someone who hasn't fought in a year had a seizure, but. I'm not a doctor, but just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I think we can, surmise that wasn't what happened. But give me 1 second.
Look at this fucking guy shows up late. He's off screen already. Guys, throw some questions in here. we're about to try the gimlet out, but while I'm waiting for my co-host to get one of the 3 ingredients that are involved in it, throw something out there here.
Hey, fuck off.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I was looking forward to the fight, though. I felt pretty confident that Aaron is camera jug. Where did Shawn get off? I was pretty confident that Aaron was going to take care of business, to be honest with you. I had actually parlayed her with the goes the distance in the Artelene fight that morning to get a bit more down on the goes the distance there on FanDuel. Yeah, I felt like she was going to get the takedowns relatively easily and probably dominate the fight. Was my personal opinion.
Yeah, she's more skilled, man. Macy Barber getting taken down by Andrea Lee is like the ultimate bear signal. So
yeah, I mean, Macy Barber is just not very skilled. She's just a hoss. Like that's what she is, and I respect it. I mean, it's a pretty good base for women's MMA, obviously, but
it'll get you far for sure.
Yeah,
and it did get her far, but I think now with this happening, I think this is going to set her back quite a bit. Having your main event canceled where Buffer has to literally did you see the video where Buffer like just comes out and he's like, due to unforeseen circumstances, the main event is off. Have a great night, everybody. It's like those fucking tickets. I'd be pissed.
No, but also, I mean, let's be honest. Cheers. Okay, I'll go fuck myself. I've been waiting for you to have a drink here. Look at this fucking guy just showing up here and pulling this shit.
I'm a mess. Cheers.
But I feel like the experience of the Apex kind of outweighs like any of that. Like we saw a relatively boring main event, if I'll be honest, after the first 3 minutes with Fluffy and Barrera. But it's like we got some lady bringing us drinks to our seats. We got a free buffet sitting there. We're like right next to the octagon. Like I actually enjoyed watching Pereira get his face beaten into the ground, even though the fight was pretty boring, just because of how close they were to us.
Yeah. So. It was funny because I was getting messages from people that were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you chose that event because a lot of the fights went the distance, right? But you could have fooled me. I didn't notice there. I was just enjoying it. I thought it was super exciting when you're watching it live that close with all the amenities. The fighters are walking right past our seats. So, yeah, the Apex experience is kind of unmatched. I'm sure it would have been even better if we saw finishes, but it wasn't required.
We also had the We Want Picks guy. I think his name's JT there with us, and that guy was just like constant entertainment. Literally was like, it was one of the funniest 4 to 6 hours I've spent in my life watching him dog Chris Tione and fighters that he didn't bet on. It was truly electric.
He went absolutely nuts on Tione during that Hadley fight. Jake Hadley can basically single-handedly blame that JT guy for getting a point.
When you rewatch it, when I was taping Smotherman a few weeks back, like Smotherman's like, are the crowd usually this crazy? Like, is it? And you can hear him being like, Chris, you warned him. I heard you warn him. You gotta take a point here. Yeah. But anything else from last week? I mean, we both bet Jacoby. I feel like that fight, I don't want to say I thought that Bruno would die to a half-strength jab, a minute into the fight, but it seemed fairly apparent to me on the tape that this guy is not really a UFC level fighter. And yeah, I mean, you got a great price. What'd you get? -135?
Yeah, -134. Yeah. Yeah, I blind bet it basically because, I mean, we're familiar with these guys at this point. I think we both faded Bruno on his first Contender Series fight and then bet on him on the second Contender Series fight and now got to fade him here. So like Bruno's been kind of nice actually.
Yeah.
Because
I unfortunately did not bet on him against Godzi. I know a lot of people did.
Oh, his last fight?
Yeah.
In the UFC, I didn't bet on him there. I only did his 2 Contender Series fights and then the last one. I got all of those. So he's been great. He's easy to judge, right? He's just kind of unathletic. He's not really good at anything. I didn't realize he was as chinny as he is, though. So that was a little surprising. I thought Jacoby was probably going to just win a decision. I'm a little surprised.
I felt it's funny. I got into I don't want to say an argument, but a discourse about that. With a couple people saying like Jacoby could lose moments, and I was like, man, Bruno's been rocked in like 8 different fights that I've seen. Like I'm really not sure that that's the case. Like Jacoby, he doesn't have the best durability, but he's not getting rocked by like soft hitters, for the most part. He's getting rocked by like big power punchers. So
plus this guy's not fast, right? So like one of Jacoby's biggest flaws right now is that he's slowed down himself, right? So he can't really like naked leg kick as much as he used to, but this guy's slow. So what's the threat level? It's not high at all.
I have to say, there's not a ton else to talk about that card. 2 other things I'll bring up. The first one, you and I were texting about it last week. Like the Ardeline fight, which seems like it was one of the gift lines of the century. I messaged you and I told you I'm not betting it because of that. It seemed fucking weird to me that she stayed above plus 200 pretty much until fight time. Because I was like, this makes no sense. Someone has got to know something here. Like someone has to know something. There's got to be some sharp money because like, how is this not a pick 'em fight? And usually when something seems that obvious, it usually ends up, playing out the exact opposite way of how you think, which is probably just overthinking it. I mean, it's women's MMA and Ardeline was 0-2. So pretty, any thoughts on that?
I'll be honest. So I went back and watched a lot of these fights. I didn't watch that one. I was at a baseball game. I heard it was
Ardeline beat her ass.
Yeah, I heard it was like the best fight to watch because
it was electric. Yeah,
he killed her. I'm a little surprised because I thought Ardeline would be value, but I put it in my head where I'm like, I think she's still gonna lose because I thought Rayanne was just more skilled than her pretty much everywhere. But it just turns out, I'm assuming the way the fight went was Ardeline's tenacity and forward pressure and just going after it probably won her the fight, right?
Yeah, and Ardeline was throwing counters and combos every time and landing. And also, like Rayanne, her wrestling's not good. It's funny. I saw someone say, "Why isn't she trying to wrestle more?" And I'm like, she attempted like 9 takedowns. She just didn't. She got 1 takedown, and her move was to instantly jump for an armbar and not try to consolidate at all, and she just lost position right away. Dogfather, shout out to the Dogfather. He can probably say it for me. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know he won
units plus 250. I remember.
Dude, he had better than that, man. He won $15K on a same game parlay where he had, I believe it was Ardeline to win, Ardeline over significant strikes, Riani over significant strikes, and maybe it was goes the distance. I can't remember, but I mean, it was some serious king shit there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the only other thing I'd bring up, we both, or I don't know if you were on Nascimento. I was pretty, and shout out to someone else in the chat. Like Liam called it out on my show last week. Cause like I don't want to say bearish on Filo's grappling coming in, but I was like, I really don't think this guy's like that good of a grappler against, actual grapplers. And he looked awesome. Like while he was fresh. And even like later in the fight, I was like super, super impressed with it. It really surprised me that he was able to kind of like out physical Nascimento, for a large portion of that fight. Did you catch that at all?
I watched it. I think you and I are going to have a little bit of a different takeaway. I thought that Filo basically was 1 or 2 mistakes from winning the fight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I honestly was kind of shocked at like how much his top control was able to neutralize Nascimento. Obviously, when Nascimento ended up on top of him, it was much starker how much of a better grappler Nascimento is than him. I mean, Filo had no fucking shot like when he was on bottom, right? But yeah, I was surprised by how strong he was. I thought he fought a really good fight, and he just made like a mistake in round 2 where he like hopped the back, if I remember correctly, and like kind of slid off. And then it just snowballed from there. But it was like
he went too high, and Nascimento baited it hard when he went too high. The last one though in round 3 was almost the same thing, just small era. He went for like that hip ride, and you could see Nascimento was just kind of trying to bait him into a position he could turn, and it was like Nascimento. I felt like watching it. Nascimento had a lot more scope on top because you could see Nascimento could control him with more or less ease. But also, I feel like to get the fight on top, he needed Filo to kind of just make errors. Like Filo looked much more dominant in top position when he was there than Nascimento did when he was there. You know what I
agree.
mean?
Yeah. Like there's levels to the jiu-jitsu for sure. It's just I am still a little surprised by how well Filo, controlled from top. Because he did show that he's actually like a pretty legitimate grappler. It's just, there's very few that are as good as Nascimento, I would say, in the division.
Yeah, especially at jiu-jitsu, pure jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can move on. We got a big pay-per-view this week, unless there's anything else you want to highlight from last card.
Obviously, I'll just be brief. The only other bets I had were Levitt and Gamrot, and both looked pretty clear. So, not really.
Gamrot's sub was kind of frustrating because I feel like
you should have subbed him in round 1.
Man, even in round 3, I felt like if he got him down a bit earlier, he might have gotten there. Like Klein seemed toast,
Yeah, he was just trying to hold guard and not do anything, and that fight played out pretty much the way I thought it would play out. Like I'm a little annoyed that I didn't put more money on it, because basically Klein was screwed. I really think Gamrot was like in firm control the entire way, with the exception of maybe a little bit of round 3. It got kind of a little bit dicey, but not really. Like Gamrot.
No, I don't even think, dude, Gamrot outstruck him on the feet, like pretty clean.
He just maneuvered. Klein's just too basic. He's too linear, right? Like Gamrot's able to move all around the cage. So
I felt like you got a pretty clear glimpse in that fight into why levels matter so much. It's like, the whole narrative and why I almost didn't bet Gamrot, and I kind of came around on it, was that Gamrot's been getting hurt every fight. He's had a lot of close fights. And then like the more I thought about it, and then after I spoke to you, it's like, well, go back to like Scott Holtzman and Jeremy Stevens and guys like that. He wasn't having close fights with them, It's like he's having close fights with like Beneil Dariush and like the best guys in the world. It's just
and beating Arman Sarukian in a close fight that's controversial, but like still, it's like, what would Arman do to Ludovic? Also, I felt like at least like some people were saying like, oh, the weigh-in showed that Ludovic, he's a true 55er. I thought he looked smaller than Gamrot, and he looked smaller than him in the cage. He just looks kind of like a blown-up featherweight to me.
The thing is, he looks like, when you see him flex on a camera by himself, he looks freaking huge because obviously he's on steroids and, his like muscles are like ripping. It's like early 90s like pro wrestler. Like his muscles are like, his skin is expanding. You can see it, like that's what's going on. But yeah, I agree. And it's funny because like I was kind of nervous going into the fight because I'm like, he could hurt him. And like within like 90 seconds, I was like, oh no, this is gonna be as easy as it gets. This is pretty clear how this is gonna go. But yeah, I mean that was a fun fight. It was a nice cash. Let's move on. We have we'll start with the main event here. I think that's a good way to start.
That's cool.
I don't think either of us have bet it. I will say, I'll just start and I'll let you retort. I had come into it, and like even when we did our show on Sunday, I had kind of been like trying to get myself and talk myself into an O'Malley bet. It's like there are some like market parallels like Bilal JDM where it's like Merab hasn't had market respect in like years. And he's finally getting it. It's like O'Malley's younger fighter, should be getting better. The first fight wasn't close, but like maybe O'Malley's 1 or 2 hard shots away from finishing it. And like there was a whole bunch of things to me that like from a macro level, I'm like, maybe this is too wide. And like I've rewatched the fight like twice since then, and it's like O'Malley landing a couple extra hard shots to steal the decision or knocking him out feels like his win condition. That's kind of how I've come away from it. I feel like Merab is much more likely to look like minus 800 and come out much more aggressive and take him down 12 times than O'Malley is to come out and put on like a very processed performance, where he dominates Merab. Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we have similar thoughts. So for me, I feel like Merab underperformed in that fight. I feel like watching him, I'm like, that was one of the worst Merab performances I've seen in a while, right? So if Merab shows up to be, the Merab that fought Jan or any of these other guys, Umar, it's going to be really tough for O'Malley to deal with it. Am I saying he has no shot? No. Am I betting Merab? No, because we've gotten great prices on Merab for forever now. So like, why would I rush to the window? The other thing too is Merab. People have been playing Merab a little wrong too, because Merab is also the kind of guy where if he's minus like 500 live, minus 600 live, 700 live, when he's in firm control of the fight, those are like amazing bets. Yes. And I've been doing that consistently in his
because he's getting better, as the fight's going on.
Stop it. Like once it starts, it's like you're fucked basically. So like, that's the way I would approach with Merab as this pre-fight heavy juice. I would probably just kind of stay away and just see like, okay, how's the fight going? And if the fight is going like heavily in Merab's favor, just lay chalk, if it looks like it's okay.
Dixon saying embedded Shawn said he's going to willingly grapple more. I know how that's going to look like. It's going to look bad for O'Malley. If he's not going to do that, but if he did, it's going to look bad.
Well, troll. Welch is a troll. Yeah. Yelling at Merab during the fight.
So that's the other thing. It was one of the biggest things I noticed. It's like when you look at the O'Malley fight and then the Umar fight, because I don't think the level of danger, it's maybe a little higher with O'Malley on the feet than Umar, but not like significantly so. And I had initially thought he was respecting O'Malley a lot, but like in the Umar fight, he came out much hotter out the gate, and if he comes out like that against O'Malley, like maybe he gets caught, but I'm with you. I kind of think it's more likely, people keep talking about like, oh, O'Malley was 2 shots from winning the fight. Dude, the guy got outlanded in total strikes, 214 to 45. This could easily be like a 50 to 43, like O'Malley 48-47 can happen, but it feels, the more I think about it on the tiniest of margins, like I'm not laying minus 300 to your point. I bet 3 units on Merab plus 115 in the first fight. I bet 2 units on Merab plus 255 against Umar. Like I'm not going to turn around and lay minus 300 on Merab on a fight that I've already made money on,
There's absolutely no point in taking the risk unless, I guess the way I'll put it is I just don't like betting title fights like this at those prices.
I agree.
It really makes no sense. Anything.
And Liam's point here is true. O'Malley definitely, he's a much more precise when he catches you, like he does have, I don't want to say scary power, but like his precision has led to a ton of UFC knockdowns and knockouts for a division where there's not usually that many of either.
Yeah. The other issue too, and I feel like it hasn't shown up in a while in an O'Malley fight, but like I always just worry about his general durability too.
Yeah.
Because he's not really built to take like hellacious amounts of damage. Like imagine if Merab like lands, like I'm not saying this is going to happen, but like what if Merab lands like half the leg kicks he landed against Jan against O'Malley? Like O'Malley literally went out on, I'm going to sound like such a dick, but the Cheeto fight, like in retrospect, he didn't actually have an injury.
Well, and forget it. What about the even going prior to that, Sukumatov, early in his career, he had a similar thing happen to him where he was basically on one leg because Sukumatov insisted on staying on top instead of letting him stand up. He basically was able to milk it out to the bell. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't think Shawn winning would be the worst thing ever. It would probably lead to some more fun bantamweight title fights. Although Merab's pretty fun, but like I can't get to a bet on it. Like the minute dynamic is.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the minute dynamic. It's just so insane. It's like, yeah, Merab got hurt bad by Marlon Moraes. He's been hurt before. But, like, the dude's recoverability seems insane. And it's like, unless you're putting this guy down out cold, it's just so hard. Like, I shouldn't say he's not beatable by decision, but it is fucking tough to do it, man. Like, there's a reason no one's done it yet, in the UFC. Actually, that's not true. Frankie Saenz did it. I lied. Frankie Saenz in his debut did it.
I hear the phrase minute winner tossed around, like, a lot. And it's like, yeah, this person's going to be the minute winner, this person. And it's like, there's no better minute winner that's pretty much ever fought in the UFC, maybe with the exception of GSP, than Merab.
It's like Merab.
Like, How do you win?
Merab is like what people thought, because Covington, like on a wash, Robbie Lawler attempted 500 strikes. What people thought Colby Covington was. That is what Merab is against like not washed guys, like the best fighters on the planet. You know, I was arguing with, not arguing, but I was asking Gombas the other day. I was like, is Merab the best bantamweight ever? I know it sounds like so, because of how awkward his style is, it sounds like so contrarian, but I'm like, I can't think of anybody who's been a more dominant, like even Cruz at his peak. Cruz is amazing, but like, Cruz didn't like, dominate. You know what I mean?
It's just the argument is always like, accolades versus like what you're watching, right? So Merab hasn't even come close to the accolades of a lot of these guys. So Chael Sonnen never lost a round. That's true. If he only knew that, you could wrap your legs around a man and win a fight. He didn't know the rules.
I mean, Chael Sonnen was like, I don't even want to say dismissive. He was almost like disgusted at the idea of jiu-jitsu. Like I remember seeing an interview with him once talking about the reason jiu-jitsu doesn't work anymore is because wrestlers showed up. And it's like, how many times did you get submitted, Chael, by like jiu-jitsu in your career?
I mean, that's that Team Quest right there. It was like 4 meatheads in a garage in Oregon, and then like a random person would show up every now and then, like Phil Baroni or some shit, to be a body in the gym, and that was that gym. So
I love Chael though.
Had a single Brazilian at Team Quest. I don't think so.
Chael is like what every heel should aspire to be, and no one is. Like I feel like Chael is the kind of guy that, like, if he put his mind to it, could have gone to like Harvard. Like he's like so, his vocabulary is great. He rhymes words together. He was an incredible heel, way ahead of his time, honestly.
Yep. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. But somehow Chael would also say great things too. He was
all the time. Unfortunately,
words,
he was also great at. He was great at choking in big spots, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's the.
Hold on. I will say Chael's story is better that he lost those fights, given like he popped. You know what I mean? So it's almost
yeah.
He did, But it is a shame because I know he was like next in line to be like the next Dana White. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I think it still should happen, but.
It should. He's great. Honestly, I can't picture. Like, did you watch that? I know we're getting off track, but like, did you watch that Fight Inc. show they did on Roku? It was like behind the UFC. So they did like 3 episodes. It was pretty cool, honestly. It was like a 3-hour documentary basically on like how the UFC functions behind the scenes. And you see him like Dana White interacting with like Hunter and Mick and Shawn like a lot. And I'm like watching it and I'm like, man, those guys like can't. These guys are going to be like cowering away if like one of these fighters like does something off color behind the scenes. Like these guys can't handle a Bryce Mitchell. You need someone like Chael with the confidence and that Chael has.
You're saying they were too buttoned up?
Yeah, they're like buttoned up and like I don't want to say meek. Meek's the wrong word, but you can tell like Dana. I mean, Dana's confident wherever he goes, right? Like,
no, but you're right. Hunter and Shawn are like not the same as Dana, which is kind of crazy that they were running basically the WEC, but like,
who absorbed them? I mean, that's
true. They submitted. Yeah, they submitted. Yeah. Fair point.
But like Dana,
the show though, really quick. What's the show?
It's called Fight Inc. It's on Roku. They did it last year, and like they have 3 episodes, and it's all about like the behind the scenes in the UFC. They profile a couple fighters in it, but like it's really cool. I really enjoyed it, honestly.
Cool.
But anyway, let's talk about some other fights on this card, guys. If anybody in the chat has any wants to hear any discourse on another fight, throw it in there. I'll tell you right now what I think my most intriguing fight on the card is. And I still haven't decided if I'll get to a bet on it or not, but Sergey Spivac, Waldo Cortez-Acosta. I honestly think it is a bizarre clash of styles. And like I tape it and I'm like, man, Spivac should really like fucking maul Waldo. But there are so many like, it's kind of weird for a guy who's been in the UFC as long as Spivac, how many variables here that like, we don't have answered, because like the only time he's really gone long in the UFC are with Alexei Oleinik and Carlos Felipe. Everybody else, all of his good wins, he's breaking guys inside a round and a half and they're breaking and quitting, and he's finishing them. And like, to me, it's quite obvious. Liam posted something today on his wall. It was like Spivac finishing to Ivasa. And it's like, I love the way Spivac grapples on from top position. Like when guys get their back up, he doesn't put a body triangle in. He just rides them, gets wrist control, rides them, and beats the shit out of them. But like all these guys, he's breaking inside of 7 or 8 minutes. And I feel like, I don't want to say they're bitches or anything like that. They're professional fighters. But like Waldo Cortez-Acosta does seem like he's built different to me. Like he is not a guy that is going to break. Spivac may beat the shit out of him for 3 rounds or maybe even find a finish. But like he is going to have to, kill him to do that. And I am not sure, especially you're watching the Oleinik fight, that Spivac's got the cardio to deal with that. And if Waldo keeps getting up and gets in his face, I'm not sure he's got the mental to deal with that either. Like, what's your view on it?
Yeah, but that's the key. That's the key. You just said if Waldo gets up and gets in his face, when the fuck does Waldo ever get in anybody's face? The guy he's got this game where he just jabs on the outside and throws this overhand baseball pitch. Sure, when he's fighting somebody like of Ryan Spann, and everything that he throws is, harming Spann. Of course, he's going to swarm him. But for me, the way I look at it is stylistically, Spivac has nearly all the advantages. To your point,
I agree.
Sorry, you want to read Liam's thing?
No, I was going to say, I agree with what you're saying. I also agree with this. Like, Peterson's good, but like, I think Spivac would probably whoop Peterson, to be honest.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah. Like the thing is Spivac, I forget who said, I think it was maybe Gugabe. He said, well, that Spivac's had a second puberty or something like that. It is true that Spivac, like, he clearly sauced, right? He's been saucing again. But to your point, I will say Waldo is definitely built different. I've met Waldo before in person. He is built different. He acts different. He's that guy, right? But you're dealing with a guy who is going to be trying to jab someone who can kick. And somebody who, he doesn't really have a whole lot of experience grappling versus a guy who, it may sound like an exaggeration, but is one of the better submission artists in heavyweight. Yeah. He's a very good submission grappler. And also, you got to remember, Spivac does weird takedowns. He does a lot of judo, right? How many heavyweights are preparing, especially at Waldo's gym? If you saw Waldo's gym in Arizona, it's not really like this dynamic lineup of bodies to train with, right? So how prepared is he going to be for that type of stuff? Is Waldo just going to look like Greg Hardy and get tossed immediately? I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, by any means, at all. And on the feet, like he's going to have to deal with the length, right? So then it's just the cardio, what you're saying, which is like, do you really bet on cardio versus finish upside at heavyweight? I'm usually betting the finish upside at heavyweight. So,
yeah, I agree. And I also felt like, when you rewatch the DeLima fight, and like, Waldo could have made improvements, but to your point, it's not really the best gym for grappling. Like, I rewatched that and I'm like, if DeLima was a bit quicker and a bit more agile, like some of the positions Waldo was giving away, he could have gotten to really dominant positions and finished the fight from. And like I love DeLima and he's a decent grappler, but like Waldo or Spivac's got a much better top game. It's like not even close,
Yeah.
So that's the direction I've been leaning. I just like, it's funny because like I don't want to, because I literally in Mike's Discord earlier today when I saw someone comparing like Spivac Gone to Spivac Waldo, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like they could not be like two less similar. But in my head, I'm also like, that's a hard fight to get out of my head, But it's like I know Gone hits the body. Gone's got elite kicks,
range. It's all about range. So Spivac is decent with his range, right? But like Gone is the most elite guy in the division at range, right? So like,
I actually low key what Liam just said. I actually agreed with taping it. It's like we saw Waldo show the total extent of his grappling game, and the fact that
that's a good point actually. And I bet Waldo in that fight.
Me too.
Yeah. But I was clenching my butthole for part of that fight, dude. Like
at the start of every round.
Yeah, at the beginning of every round. But to your point, so I did bet Spivac. So what I'm saying is predicated. It's on a bet. So I did bet him. And I know a lot of people like Waldo, a lot of people I respect. like Waldo this week. But like for me, I pretty much think it's going to look like a levels fight. I think
To me, it's
prospect.
To me, it's obviously if you're betting a pre-fight money line, it's Spivac or pass. Like I'm like, I don't want to say certain Waldo could catch him, but like I'm nearly certain if he doesn't get caught early, Spivac is going to dominate the early portion of this fight. Like badly dominate it, you know. And at which point there's almost an argument at minus 135 that's like, if you're so inclined and worried about the pace, you're probably going to be able to flip off it at like 250, 300, you know, post around.
Which I won't be able to because I can't watch it live. So,
oh, you can't.
I'm just going to pull up the little results like I did last week. And fortunately, the results were in my favor. But
another D-backs game?
No, I'm traveling. Yeah, I have an early flight tomorrow.
Where are you going?
Baltimore.
Dude, you should just drive up to the East Coast. Come watch the fights with me, Pepe, and the Dogfather at the FanDuel Sportsbook in New Jersey.
I would, but I have obligations at home, so it's going to be a short family trip, and then I'm hopping right back, dude. I canceled a trip last week because I was like, I'm busy with other things, but yeah, I almost canceled this one, but I can't.
That's a serious flight for that. Like I went to see Chad and came back the next day, but like that was like it was like 45 minutes in the air, you know, like it was like a nice, like quick little.
I heard you had a great time with Chad.
Dude,
I'm not surprised at all.
It was amazing. We had a blast. Yeah. And like Chad, he was like, these seats are sick, they're lower level, but I'm like, I've gotten like lower level at MSG before and been like, I'd be better off watching on TV. No, they were actually, I don't want to say that they were exactly like the Apex. We were probably like 12 rows back, the distance from like where we were at the Apex, but like they were really good seats. The Canadian fans are like a blast. They're all sweethearts, you know, like it's, I got to hear Chad speak French because apparently he does that fluently. It was a fun experience. It was a really fun
he's
experience.
A Frenchman.
No, I don't think he is. I'm pretty sure he's British.
I'm just fucking around. Yeah, no, I'm literally not surprised at all that you had a great time with Chad in Montreal. Montreal is like easily one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. Amazing city. If anybody ever gets an opportunity to travel there, you will have a fucking awesome time.
It is very cool. All right, we're moving past this fight. Shawn, tell me something. Talk to me about something. What should we talk about? Should we talk about the People's Main Event this week?
Is that Markel Maderos versus Mark Choinski?
Well, that might be our main event this week. But
okay, well, is it Mario Bautista versus Patchy Mix?
There we go. Hit me with it. Give me your thoughts, because I feel a bit stronger about the Mario side than you do. But
yeah. So I did bet Bautista. I guess I got reverse CLV'd as of today. We'll see what it looks like at fight time, but I bet Bautista, and like you said, I'm not as like enthusiastic about it as you are. My bet is a little smaller than you, actually a lot smaller than yours. But the way I see it is, I know that Bautista has been taken down by some guys, but I'm just rewatching the fights. It seems like Patchy is more of an opportunistic guy when somebody else engages him. And the way I see the dynamics here is that I think Bautista's movement is better. I think he's a better athlete. I do think his clinch game is pretty strong. So even though Patchy's like kind of strong in that area in Bellator, I think that Bautista is going to be a little better than him there. So for me, it just boils down to, okay, if Bautista gets taken down, it is trouble, because what I've watched of Bautista on tape, he does give up his back, but the thing that's more concerning for me is that he likes to sit up into a single leg, which seems pretty obvious that Patchy would submit him from there. So I hope he doesn't do that. But if we're looking at the fight in its totality, I think it should probably be a pick'em, just because there's a lot going on here. Patchy's making his UFC debut. He has fought sub UFC level competition. People need to remember that Bellator is sub UFC level competition. It is. I know the state of MMA is dire, where we're not getting a whole lot of amazing prospects like we did 10 years ago, but it's still, the fact remains, the UFC rejects went to Bellator and had success. So we know
Patchy won the title from Sergio Pettis.
There you go. So like Sergio couldn't even crack like top 20. I mean,
Yeah,
let's be honest.
lower than that, honestly, in bantamweight.
So the way I view it is it's a for me, it's planting a flag that I don't think Patchy Mix is going to have the level of success he saw in Bellator and the UFC. And I do believe that the matchmakers gave us a really cool matchup for the first one where he's going to have to go against a UFC level athlete. It's not just somebody with a skill set. It's somebody who trains his ass off and shows up in shape, is strong and fast like Bautista. So I think Bautista, honestly, is going to win a decision, but I also won't be surprised if he knocks him out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like Mix is super dangerous, to your point. And that has to be factored in. Like, I think his jiu-jitsu, or especially his squeeze, I mean, you can tell, especially how long his arms are, his squeeze on the neck is obscene, you know? Yeah. I mean, like, Magomedov is not an easy guy to submit. And, like, that he put him to sleep, you know, from that position was incredibly impressive. However, having said that, I look at like the guys that Patchy has fought, and it's like you just look at like since he lost to Archuleta. Now, to be fair to him, he put Archuleta in some pretty dangerous positions early in that fight. I believe actually that Sergio was ranked at 125. Yeah, Mayor Midville just said it. Like he was not ranked at 35. But Albert Morales, his next fight, he loses round one. He can't take Albert Morales down, who was an absolute fucking bum. And like I was always a fan of Albert Morales. He's a high action fighter. But he drops the first round of that fight, and then he's able to take him down in round 2 and able to get him down in round 3 and submit him from there. But like fights James Gallagher. The first like 7.5, 8 minutes of that fight are like really competitive. James Gallagher.
It looked bad for Patchy for a second there.
Very bad. And like James Gallagher isn't winning many fights, period, in the UFC, in my opinion. You know? Next fight after that, he fights Kyoji Horiguchi. Now, that's a really good win, except Kyoji, number one, he's coming back to the UFC as a flyweight. The guy is a flyweight. That fight,
small flyweight.
Yeah, he's not big, and he tools Patchy on the feet for the entire fight. Patchy gets basically 3 back kicks to win the fight, you know, off takedowns. That's how he wins. Which, again, not to take anything away from him, it's like, okay, you know, that's his best skill. Like that's great. He could do that here for sure. Fights Rafael Stotts, really bad matchup. Knocks him out with a knee to the head a minute into the fight. You know, that's. We learned. I said it in Mike's Discord earlier. I was like, I feel like that would have been like the most indicative fight of how this would go, but it ended in a minute against a guy who doesn't knock people out. You know, so doesn't tell us anything. Fight Sergio Pettis again. Sergio Pettis, who was like plus 500 to Henry Cejudo at flyweight because of the grappling dynamic, submits him in the second round. Now, to be fair, I did bet Sergio Pettis in that fight at about plus 200. Not a great bet. But again, he's fighting another former flyweight who is really bad if you put him on the ground. And then he fights Magomedov. And like, if we're being honest, was it a robbery? You can make the argument for it. I thought Magomedov won. You thought Magomedov won. Most people thought he won. And like Magomedov's a really good fighter, but he's a really good fighter because he's grappling. Because striking is, I mean, he was basically losing the striking to Enrique Barzola, you know, but like before he submitted him. So yeah. It's like this whole run. I'm not saying it's fraudulent, but I do think it's been blessed to a degree. And it's against a level of competition in the aggregate, with the exception of Horiguchi, who's a flyweight, and Magomedov, who are really would not be winning many fights at 135 in the UFC. And now he gets Mario Bautista. And like, I agree with you, Sean. I have similar concerns. If Mario sticks his neck in something going for a single leg, he could get put to sleep. He could lose a low volume striking affair on the feet. But like when you see Mario fight these jiu-jitsu guys and these grapplers, he pushes them to the fence. He goes to the clinch and goes to where he's best. And like, I don't think he's going to get out pummeled by Mix in the clinch. I don't think he's going to give up a guillotine from the clinch, you know? And to your point, I just think he's more physical and the better athlete. So it's like, I don't make him a big favorite because, yeah, Patchy's way more lethal than him. Patchy could like snatch something at any point and finish his fight. Patchy could win a low volume striking decision. But I do think Mario is a much more proven fighter. And I feel like short of ending up with Patchy on his back, he should have advantages everywhere else in this fight. Like that's kind of like how I feel about the fight, you know? So,
and I went into it thinking I was going to bet Patchy mix because of the submission abilities. But at the end of the day, I actually think the low volume decision path is actually pretty low percentage for
yeah.
Patchy because I don't think he looks comfortable striking. Like I know he'll
And
pump
Mario
up.
will string it together.
What was that?
I said Mario will string it together.
He will. And what if he just, chews apart his legs? I mean, like, what happens then? So Patchy really, I don't know. I don't want to belabor the point, but like, he really hasn't faced too much opposition at all.
No, and it's like he's not like it's not like he's Aljamain Sterling, right? Where it's like he doesn't have the wrestling of Aljamain Sterling, he doesn't have the chest-to-chest game of an Aljamain Sterling, and on the feet,
He's a better
he doesn't
jiu-jitsu
have.
guy, though. I think he is.
He, to a degree, I don't think he is better. Well, the back control is probably similar, actually. It's probably.
I think he probably is a better jiu-jitsu guy, but Aljamain is like a vastly better MMA fighter.
Well, and the biggest
overall grappler.
And the bigger thing is like the striking, like Aljo spams volume constantly and doesn't get hit that much, whereas Patchy's fairly low volume and is pretty easy to find on the feet, So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Yeah, that did happen. That is a fact. I recall that.
Tony Gravely, the guy who I've lost so much money on in the
UFC. I can't even like Gravely is like. I feel like Tony Gravely should have been a pretty good UFC fighter, and he just wasn't. I'll
say this, John. So near the end of like Gravely's UFC run, I was talking with somebody at like ATT, and I was like, "Yeah, Gravely should win this fight." He's like and we were like going over it, and then I was like, Gravely is like an amazing wrestler, and the response was, "Is he?" And I was like, oh, okay. That's not a good sign.
I laid big juice on him against Nate Manas. And like, yes, I almost won the fight via KO at the end of round 1. Yeah. But like, he struggled to grapple with Nate Manas, which is.
I overrated this guy's wrestling like big time. And then when you hear it right from the horse's mouth, it's like, oh shit. So everybody's aware this guy's wrestling is like average. Except for me, like, the hell.
All right, talk to me. Now, we should tell. I mean, we both like Mark Choinski this week. We should talk about that. What are your thoughts on Mark Choinski and Markel Maderos?
Yeah. So this is like a broad strokes bet, right? So for me, I love spots like this because it's more of the unknown, right? So we know certain things about this matchup, but we don't know other things about this matchup. And for me, that type of uncertainty is usually a great opportunity. So I did bet Choinski above the 200 range. And for me, the way I view this fight is we know what Markel Maderos is. Basically, Markel Maderos is the type of fighter where in most matchups, he's going to look about minus 185 as his upside, right? So if you're thinking about upside, like finishability, like dominance, he's really a minus 185 at most fighter because he fights pretty close in his fights. He's more of a point fighter, a movement fighter, defend takedowns and stand up type of fighter. So his upside is pretty firmly capped, in my opinion. Now, Mark Choinski, I personally believe that his tape is deceiving. Because the way I view Mark Choinski is, okay, well, the guy obviously is a 3-time All-American wrestler. It's Division III, but still it's a good school, and he was a 3-time All-American. And I don't think people realize, because I've heard some comments on this, you just don't happen to stumble upon 3-time All-American. You earn that. So he is clearly a very, very good wrestler. Now, if you look at his tape, you don't really see it all the time on the tape because the way I view it is Choinski was clearly trying to develop his striking game and to get comfortable in fights because that's the smart thing to do. If you are 29, late 20s and you're trying to make it to the UFC, you don't want to pull a Bulgarian and just absolutely mollywop everybody on the regionals, right? You want to work on your striking, get comfortable so that you're a full fighter. So that's how I view his tape. I'll admit, if Choinski does decide he's going to stand with Maderos, he's too square and he's probably going to lose a point decision. But based off what I saw in the few instances where he tried to take opponents down, I do think he has a really good knee tap takedown. He has some other takedowns too that are good. But the thing that stood out to me was his jiu-jitsu. So when he's on top, he clearly looks like a competent jiu-jitsu player. And I do believe that, I think it was Oliva said that, C-Rod said that, and, it's all hearsay, right? Everything always is. But like he said, he is like a really good grappler. So I'm not surprised to hear that based off of what I watched. So you watch, and I'm sorry I'm long-winded at this point, but I'll end it on this. So Maderos obviously struggled with some grappling against Hubbard, and Hubbard has historically been the type of guy who loses to grapplers. So if you couldn't really pick a better matchup other than matching him up with Hubbard for your debut fight, right? You're going against a guy who
second fight, he almost lost to Landy Quinones in his first fight.
Well, what I'm saying though is, yeah, I agree with you, but I'm saying for Choinski, you couldn't pick a better opponent than Maderos, other than Hubbard. If they matched him up with Hubbard, that'd be an even, I guess, better opponent because Hubbard's such a bad grappler. But like Maderos clearly isn't a good grappler from what I've seen. So if Choinski does his grappling game, I do think that he's going to have success here. And I think, when you're getting $2 on that price for the uncertainty of what if, I think that it's an easy bet. So I did bet like 1.5 units on that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to take – I mean, you nail most of the points in it. The two things I just want to highlight with the fight is like I keep hearing it's a step up in competition. And to a degree, it's true. I mean, Maderos is certainly the best fighter he's fought, right? But like this isn't the kind of case where it's like we get a contenders guy fighting someone like a Michael Johnson who's like 8-11 in the UFC but fought like only killer. He's been fighting like killers for years and years and years. Like he's fighting a guy who you could make a real argument is should be 0-2 against the literal bottom rung of the ladder in the division, Landy Quinones and Austin Hubbard. And not only that, but got out grappled by Austin Hubbard fairly thoroughly in that fight. And then like beyond that, I just feel like I don't know why maybe it's the fight with Isakov on Contender Series, but like Markel Maderos, I don't think hits very hard. He's not particularly high volume. Like I feel like it's much more plausible. I don't think this will happen, by the way, just to be clear. Like if they strike, I think Maderos will win fairly handily. But like you could convince me they end up in a low volume striking affair that's competitive more likely than you could convince me that Maderos competes grappling, or stuffs grappling if it's there.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. But like if I told you Choinski fights like an idiot and just strikes them for 3 rounds and it's a really close 29-28, will you be shocked?
No.
Right. Whereas if I told because
Maderos doesn't have a ton of power and he's pretty low volume. He prioritizes his movement in his fight.
Yeah. Ironic because he doesn't really have great head strike defense either. But like I don't know. I've never really seen it with Maderos, and I'm not saying Choinski is going to be like the next big thing or anything like that. But like I do, to your point, I think his jiu-jitsu is very, very legit. And like, dude, like I watched like the Austin Hubbard fight, and I'm like, man, Austin Hubbard is not even that strong, man. The fact that this guy is like pinning you to the into the fence and dragging you down with relative ease is. I can't think of a more like bearish indicator, on how you're going to deal with grappling in the UFC. So I feel like there is like a real chance. And I know I texted you on Sunday, but like Choinski, it's like everybody's like, oh my God, he was minus 500 like in this fight. And I can't imagine a situation where we're like, wow, can you believe how bad Maderos carved through him? Like that's
thoroughly for 3 rounds. Maderos just dominated.
Yeah.
You made a really good point. You said you don't think Choinski is going to be the next big thing. You don't think so. But do you know so with Maderos?
Yes, I am very aware.
I know so. So like that's the crux of the bet, right? Is I don't think Choinski is, but I think that there's like a possibility here where he's better than what his tape is showing.
I agree, especially like, dude. So like, and I don't want to go too far into it and get like too deep in the weeds with prognosticating, but like, I've seen him hit a couple like sick knee tap takedowns, and like those are, those are not easy to hit unless you're like a really fucking good wrestler, and like I watched that and I'm like, dude, this guy knows what he's doing. Like if he gets in on Markel's hips, like he's going to the mat. Like I'm like 100% sure, And I'm also
on top.
Yeah. And I'm also like nearly, I don't want to say 100%, but I'm nearly sure that Choinski's a much better grappler than Austin Hubbard is. Like that. So it's.
I would bet my life on it.
Yeah.
Based on
I mean, Shawn said the same thing here, and I think it makes sense because it's like you rewatch. I saw some people also criticizing him over the Johnny Simone fight, and it's like, well, I mean, Johnny Simone's a decent grappler. I mean, he's Ricky's brother, and Ricky is like one of the best defensive grapplers in the sport, period. Like, it's not really all that surprising. He struck with him for as long as he did, But we'll see. I'm not saying, like, he should be minus 300, but I do feel like directionally, I feel like only one of these guys could potentially look like a giant favorite, and I don't think it's Maderos. That's kind of my...
Yeah, and picture this, John. Like, let's imagine that Choinski had chosen to grapple on regionals heavily. That's all he did. He looked like Bulgaria, right?
Yeah.
So he's just mollywopping everybody, immediate takedown, grappling, submitting, ground and pound. What would the line be here?
Yeah, he'd probably be a favorite, like a decent-sized favorite.
Huge favorite. They'd be like, this guy's a prospect. Look at his accolades. But instead, you've got footage where the guy is barely shooting takedowns. He's, every now and then he is, and he's mostly striking, and people are like, let's just forget about those accolades. You know what I mean? They don't mean anything.
And the interesting thing is, first of all, in that same vein, Bulgarian was not a Division I wrestler either, but Choinski is at Roufusport, which I find interesting because not that Roufusport's the best gym ever, but Christian Rodriguez is his main sparring partner. Christian Rodriguez, who if you just taped him for Contender Series and taped his regional footage, you would have come away saying, this guy's a boxer. Like that's what he is.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Christian Rodriguez gets to the UFC and he's boxed a bit here and there, but like he mostly wins his fights via grappling. Like that's kind of been like his, except when he's fighting another grappler. But like that's what Cameron Saman, he came out grappling from the jump. I feel, I mean it seems pretty obvious that he's working on his striking. Like someone said to me the other day, they're like, "Oh, you really think Choinski, he's going to shoot right away?" I'm like, dude. Unless him and the entire team are retarded, like they know what the assignment is here. It's like I can't coach him. All I can do is evaluate that. Like he's smart enough to know that he should come out and grapple. From the jump.
Now it turns out a lot of the old heads that did MMA, they used to develop fighters this way. So I think they were developing him this way. And Choinski, to his credit, was willing to develop himself this way. And not a lot of guys are willing to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he turns out to be a hell of a lot better than people are expecting.
Well, it's almost like spring training, right? Where you see some like really good pitchers and like even decent pitchers like have like 6.5 ERAs because they'll just spend an entire start just throwing a slider and a cutter because like that's what they're trying to work on. They're not really, concerned about like throwing their fastball or locating,
And by the way, to that point too, Simone did land some shots on him, and I was happy with the outcome. He took the shots. He whiffed on a takedown, and at one point when he took the shots, he kind of overplayed his hand, but he didn't crumble. You know what I mean? Like at all. Like he kind of hung in there and kept fighting. So
yeah, I totally agree.
We gonna do another one?
Dude, I've done 2 more. I'm on my third right now.
2 more? No, I meant 2 more fights. You've done 2 more drinks.
Oh yeah, I'm on my third at the moment.
Oh fuck, I'm behind.
It's gonna be a rough morning.
I'm on 2.
You made a second, didn't you?
I made a second. Yeah, this is my second.
Okay, so you're not that far behind. I'm like, are you still on your first? Christ, this is.
I mean, I'm 33% of the way behind, man.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's fairly large.
You want to talk Luque and Holland? I know you have.
I was literally gonna say that to you. I have a take on the fight, and it's not a money line take. I like the fight to go the distance. And I feel like, first of all, Kevin Holland, I know he was high volume, like certain points of his career, usually when he was fighting bums during COVID. But Kevin Holland has been a very much, I'm going to take what you're going to give me guy on the feet for, most of his career against decently high level of competition. And yeah, I am not, I'll tell you what, there's two things here with Luque. I am buying Luque is not the guy that he used to be. I am buying that Luque, or three things. I am buying that Luque knows his own mortality a bit more than he did, 2 years ago. I'm also not buying that his chin is paper mache these days. I don't think there's a lot to suggest that. The Neal fight, he took a hellacious beating pillar to post before getting finished. And if you want to go back to the Buckley fight, maybe this turns out like that, but Buckley didn't hurt him on the feet at all in that fight. He kind of just, I don't know what happened, but he kind of just panicked and gave up on the mat, Yeah. Kevin Holland's not going to take this to the mat. And I really feel like if Luque does pressure forward like a zombie, it probably means his chin's fine, in which case there's a pretty strong chance this goes the distance because they're both super durable. And if he shows up like the Buckley fight, there's a decent chance it's a dance recital, And meanwhile, we have a goes the distance that's plus 200 because the general assumption is Vicente Luque can't take a punch anymore. While I feel like there's literally zero data points to actually support that. And let's say Luque takes the path of least resistance and tries to grapple and has success. Luque could sub him, but most of Luque's subs come off guys shooting on him or him hurting them in the front chokes. Right. If he's grappling Holland, I don't think he's going to process sub him from guard all the way into mount and an arm triangle, So I don't know. I feel like the goes the distance of plus 200 is absolutely crazy here. I feel like it should be honestly closer to pick 'em. And yeah, in general, I like Holland to win this fight quite a bit, but I think it's going to be a lot more touch and go than the majority of the market does. What do you think of the fight?
Yeah, you and I had talked about this a little bit, and I remember I'd heard a lot of takes on Luque's footage, and then I rewatched it, and I just don't see what a lot of people are seeing. I understand in the Buckley fight, he basically crumbled and quit, but it wasn't like he was unconscious. In fact, he stood up.
He didn't get hurt.
Yeah, it was almost like he just quit, right? And that's a bad sign, but also you can kind of forgive it because it's Luque. How many times has the guy actually quit in his fights? So maybe he was just overwhelmed by the moment. Something was going wrong that day. We don't know the story, right? So it was irregular for Luque. Are you really going to take an irregular moment in someone's career and be like, that's who they are? That's who they are.
Yeah.
All the evidence shows that they're not that way. That's who they are. And then I kept hearing that I've heard this actually from a few people, that he looked scared in the RDA fight. I rewatched that fight. I didn't see that. What I saw was a guy who was prioritizing takedown defense. And what was happening was RDA was coming in on him and
crashing.
And when the separation would happen, Luque would land counters. But then Luque discovered in the fight, oh, well, wait a second here. It's a little bit easier if I just fucking take him down. So he literally started to pin him and take him down. And that's how the fight went, right? So, yeah, that's right. Period against Buckley. But I agree with you that I think the durability narrative is a little bit over the top with Luque. I did not realize GTD was plus 200. I think that that's better than any money line side. I was actually kind of warming up to a Luque bet because I feel like, yes, he's going to lose the head strike battle, but it's possible he could land leg kicks. Dude, it's Kevin Holland. Would it really shock you if Luque was taking him down? It wouldn't shock me at all.
But do you think, I guess my retort to that would be do you think, because to your point, because one of the things I'd also heard, leading up to this is Luque wrestled hard against RDA, maybe he will here. And it's well, he didn't really wrestle hard. We counter grappled him and took him down. It's Luque.
He was, to be fair, he was pressing him to the fence, but I will agree it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
He was basically picking a leg. That's all he was doing the whole time, was picking an outside leg to take him down. And Kevin Holland's going to be way more difficult to take down than that. But it's not like Luque has been shooting takedowns in his fights, dude, his recent fights. So
yeah, but do you think Luque is like anywhere near the level of like wrestler that the guys that Kevin Holland's been getting taken down by are?
no, but I will say the ease in which Kevin Holland is getting taken down in his fights is very concerning to me. That's how
I would
I
agree with that. I mean, Gunner's a bad wrestler, and he got him down a concerning amount of times. You know,
the other thing. Hold on. Let's use the narrative thing too, because I love your GTD bet. Let's focus on that. So, like, let's say, like, oh, Luque is so chinny. Okay. Are you going to say Holland's fragile because he got injured in the Delize fight? I don't think he's fragile. He hasn't shown to be fragile at any point in his career except for that fight, right? So, like, it's such an overreaction to one moment, in my opinion. So,
well, and especially because it's not a case of like someone like Chris Weidman, right, who's been knocked out in 4 or 5 fights, and you're like, I think they got unlucky with a bunch of those knockouts. You're literally talking about a guy who is historically durable, like probably one of the best chins in the history of the sport, and saying because they had a sketchy moment against Joaquin Buckley that they can't take a punch anymore. Like this is not like Chris Weidman getting melted by like a single shot, you know, and trying to like justify a bet that way. It is a guy who literally has never gone down to a single shot in his career, including the Buckley fight and the Jeff Neal fight, and saying he can't take a punch anymore. It's almost like, you know, we got to, I don't remember if you bet him or not, but like I bet Luque against Garimbo because I was like, what? I mean, Demba
Fuck
Garimbo.
yeah, I bet him, dude. I bet him.
It's like, what are we
dissertation on Mike's Discord where I was like, listen, like, come on, what are we doing here?
And like, we're still, instead, it's kind of being reflected in the money line as well, but almost even more so in the GTD because Holland, we all know, is super durable. No one has any doubt about that.
Except for the one time he got injured.
Yeah, and the headbutt against Kyle Dawkins.
That's true. Oh, he's not durable anymore. He's been knocked out. You know what I mean? Like,
I like sort of think, dude, Holland's not really a brawler, man. Like like if Holland had a bit more assertiveness, he would have carved through Santiago Ponzinibbio, and he did eventually finish him. But most of the fight was him kind of just dancing around on the outside and picking the occasional shot. You know, I don't think this is going to be. It could be, I guess, if Luque like kind of reverts back to what he was, but I don't think he will personally. But I think it's going to be a pretty touch and go fight with like a lot of clinching and a lot of feinting for a lot of the fight. You know, that's kind of like my assessment of it.
I mean, I see it the way you do. Kevin Holland GTD'd with Darren Stewart in a competitive fight. So how much do you really want to put stock into Kevin Holland and Kevin Holland finish? I know Kevin Holland like made his name during COVID finishing like very bad competition or competition on short notice.
Charlie Ontiveros.
Yeah, and I loved them for it, man. Like, because they were giving us back then on props, they were giving us very generous lines. So like Kevin Holland made me a ton of money, but like he's not some prolific finisher. I kind of doubt he's going to submit Luque. They're both good at the same kinds of chokes. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're good at the choke, you're probably decent at defending it. So it would boil down to a finish for me would be, the only finishing sequences I could see would be Kevin Holland knocking him out.
Maybe I could see Holland getting like a little shook and maybe panic shooting into a Darce or something like that. But
yeah. But like, what probability is it? You know, like that's the thing. What is that, like 5%, 2 points?
Yeah, and Holland doesn't get that shook even when he gets hurt. You know, like he tends to be. Yeah, I'll say this for Kevin Holland: he tends to be pretty fucking composed in there. I mean, I love Kevin Holland. He is not like. The guy is like one of the most overrated fighters in history, but I think he has literally unlocked the key to making money in the UFC, you know, and taking not much damage.
Overrated fighter, properly rated personality. The guy is
and has no interest in winning a title in his career ever. He is like, he's totally happy to lose like multiple fights in the road to the top 15 as long as Dana's going to give him someone outside the top 40 in his third fight that he can style on, you know, get on.
The beauty of Kevin Holland is, you know, Kevin Holland's not insisting that you and I take him seriously at all.
Yeah.
I'm not going for the title. So like when I watch a Kevin Holland fight, like it's very clear what I'm watching. I'm not watching his run to the title.
Well, yeah, but before he fought Gunner, he was like, yeah, and I owe my fans a win, like here finally. So it's like, yeah, the guy knows exactly what he is. Like, he's not stressing out losing.
Good for him, dude. I mean, he's made a ton of money for being basically a journeyman. So
yeah, he's like a top 18 to 30 guy at any given time who is going to walk away from the UFC one day with $5 to $6 million in the bank because he played his cards right.
And he invests. He's pretty deliberate about that. He owns a ton of businesses and stuff. So good for Kevin. Kevin's a smart guy.
He is a smart guy. He is a smart guy. All right, one more. Let's do one more here. Right. I have one. It was a guy I was going to fade last week. I'm probably not going to fade him unless the line comes in a bit more this week. Chaos Williams, Andreas Gustafsson. What are your thoughts? Hit me.
So I'll just go off of like no tape thoughts because it's not one I've taped. But I know both guys. I'm pretty familiar with them. Feels very GTD to me. I know that both guys, like they're known for these war fights, but like from what I can tell, while Gustafsson is very hittable, he's pretty tough. Chaos, he's obviously extremely tough. He's got that dog in him in every fight. So like for me, I would feel like overs would be the best angle. I haven't really looked at the line, so let me look here. I mean, it's a 1.5 at minus 165. So that seems freaking stupid to me. So that immediately stands out to me. I would say as far as the fight goes, this is an interesting fight to cap because on one hand, I do think that Chaos's athleticism and tools, he's obviously fought the way better competition and everything, but like, don't you get the sense that Chaos, like this career is like secondary to him and he's sort of peaked at the Randy Brown fight? Like that was like the end of Chaos Williams was the Randy Brown fight. And it's kind of all gone downhill from there. He's won, but he's gotten worse. I feel like
he's also been like very fortunate in his matchmaking in that like he hasn't fought other than Bone Fiend last fight, who obviously submitted him. He hasn't fought any other grappler in his entire career. He's mostly fought guys who are going to let him do his stupid little blitz counter game, and land his heavy shots. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
Do you like the over?
I do like the over. I was hoping this would get to like Chaos minus 130, minus 140, given how Gustafsson was getting power ranked last week.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Doesn't seem like it. I felt way better about like Trevin John. It's funny. This like people are going to get annoyed at this, and I don't really give a fuck. But like Chaos is way more durable than Trevin Giles and way more dangerous. But I was way more confident in Trevin Giles' ability to disengage from the clinch and like MMA Gustafsson than I am in Chaos. Like Trevin Giles is chinny, he's implodable, but like the guy is like pretty well rounded at like everything in MMA. He's a good striker who has a good clinch game, who's a decent wrestler with good jiu-jitsu. Whereas Chaos, it's like you're just getting an athlete. You're just throwing an athlete at this guy. Now he's the better athlete and he hits harder, but it's like if you told me Gustafsson could press Chaos Williams to the cage for 15 minutes, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not sure what Chaos Williams does well other than his counter blitz and a calf kick. Like anything.
Power.
Yeah,
really.
That's it.
I mean, the thing is like, would it shock you at all to watch Gustafsson have double underhooks and press him to the fence and Chaos look a little hopeless? Not really.
No, not at all. Whereas like I was like pretty confident last week. Not that Giles would win. But I was like, everybody thinks he's just going to get cage pressed here. Like, Trevin Giles is, like, good in the clinch. He knows how to pummel. Like, he is not going to get cage pressed for 15 minutes. Like, I'm, like, almost certain about it, Whereas Chaos, I'm like, I taped it, and I'm like, if he just gets cage fucked, I won't be shocked, really. Like, honestly, at all, So,
he's kind of a, I don't want to say, like, I guess I'll just say it. It's kind of an offense, but like he's a little bit of like just a raw, low IQ kind of athlete.
And the few times you've had to see this guy in grappling exchanges in his career, it's like pretty ugly. You know, Pereira took him down twice, took his back both times. Bonfim took him down with ease 4 times and eventually submitted him. Like the guy does not look like he knows. And by the way, his regional footage pre-UFC looked like he was a guy who did not know what he was doing in the grappling. It doesn't look like it's changed. The only thing that's changed is matchmaking has been very light in the UFC, you know? So it's like if Gustafsson just takes him down from the clinch and wrecks him, I mean, I don't expect that to happen, but like I wouldn't be shocked at it by any means. Whereas like last week, I was like, if Gustafsson out grapples Giles, I'll be like shocked at it, like legitimately shocked at it. You know, he might knock him out, but I didn't think he was like really all that capable of, you know, out MMAing him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, so
round 1 finish is probably just chaos detonating them, but outside of that, it's probably going to be a really ugly fight. I feel like.
Yeah, and Chaos gassed out horribly against Bonfim in less than a round and a half last fight.
He gassed and looked horrible against Bedoya too.
Yeah, yes. Also in Newark, by the way. Last time Chaos fought in Newark. I was at
Were you live?
I was out in the middle of the we decided to I think I was with Gambas, I believe. And we decided to go instead of like watching that fight, because it was like the worst fight on the card. It was Night Aljo fought Cejudo. We're like, all right, we're going to go meet up with Mike's MMA picks. So we met up with Mike and his wife, got some margaritas. It was a tremendous time. Had a drink there. Mike, the best people in person.
Decision.
Yeah. But like we're sitting there and like, I'm thinking like Mike is going to be living or dying by his bets. And like, we're chatting and he's like, we're like, start watching the screen. I'm like, you all right? He's like, wow, I bet Chaos Williams. I think he might have just lost. He wins a split decision on it. But
by the way, if you had asked me what is Mike's MMA's drink of choice, I probably would have guessed margarita. Dude, salted rim margarita. Seems very Mike's MMA.
I have met up with Mike twice at UFC events on Long Island and in New Jersey, and both times we were drinking margaritas. It was excellent experience. It was a truly excellent experience. One of the best people out there.
He's good people.
The best people, dude.
I used to listen to his like morning show like every day during the pandemic.
Me too. I'd go to the gym and just listen to it on the way in the morning.
It was the best, dude. During the pandemic, every Saturday morning I could count on Mike having that show. So much fun.
Dude, I love the space. Mike is like one of the nicest and best people in the space, and he's pretty good at what he does, you know? So, I mean, he is awesome. He is awesome.
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for the show tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You can blame fucking Shawn for being here till 11:30 instead of 11:15. He was a little late. We'll be back. What do you think? Do we do next week? The following week? We got UFC Atlanta next. We've got a lot of like destination cards. Like
we should probably do next week, to be honest, because it's going to be post pay-per-view. I think that
we got to do some kind of like a spicy barbecue-ish drink. It's going to be in Atlanta. Okay. Good barbecue down there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Something along those lines.
We'll get after barbecue drink. Okay. What would that
You've never had a spicy margarita before?
Or like, I mean, is that a barbecue drink?
Or do we both just skip work on a Thursday and just like make like some kind of like a spicy Bloody Mary in the morning, something like that?
I mean, we could do that. I mean, that makes sense. It's either that or moonshine. That's what I think of with barbecue.
We're not doing moonshine. I can't. Bro, it obviously isn't real moonshine, but it's still pretty strong. Like my wife and I, when she was my girlfriend, like, I don't know, 12 years ago, we went up to like Lake George for like Memorial Day weekend one year. Lake George, beautiful area in the Adirondacks in upstate New York. Amazing in the summer. That weekend, it was 40 degrees and raining the entire weekend. So we found some random liquor store because we were staying at a cheap motel because we were super poor. And they were selling moonshine, like apple pie moonshine.
That's awesome.
And basically all it was like rubbing alcohol with like some kind of like an apple pie syrup in it. It was an interesting weekend, and I'll leave it at that.
Fucking horrible, dude. I've had it before. I don't know why people are proud of drinking it. It's terrible.
I think they think it puts hair on your balls, but like I think all it does is make sure your liver is done by 40.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back next week. I'll let you guys know the time. Maybe we actually will do a morning drinking show. We'll see. But thanks for stopping by tonight, guys. Take it easy. As always, follow Shawn on Twitter @ShawnOr. Follow me at MMA Fox. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.